History is always written by the victors. The source of this quote is unknown, but the quote is usually attributed to Napoleon or to Winston Churchill. This statement suggests that the past is not grounded in historical scholarship or factual understanding. Rather, it's the winner's interpretation of events that prevail. Historical narratives evidenced in our school textbooks, in libraries, in statues, in public iconography, and other mediums support this fallibility. However, Africans like myself have had little say in the way Africa has been portrayed, especially through the dominant discourse of civilization, of colonization, capitalization, and more. Hello all, hello friends. I am here in Liverpool today, standing in front of the Maritime and International Slavery Museum, and I'm doing this in celebration of Black History Month, whereby I want to talk about Christianity's roots coming from Africa and demystify the notion that Christianity is a white man's religion. As a Christian man, a man of color with African roots, I often hear in many circles this errant but somewhat popular notion that Christianity is a white man's religion. Many cast their minds back to the transatlantic slave trade, when the European slave traders subjugated my forefathers and exported them to the New World. They believe this as the moment in which these slave masters brought Christianity to Africa. Unfortunately, these myths regarding Africa's influence on Christianity and the continent in general has been reinforced in sociology, with governments in the West creating social structures and making it socially acceptable to discriminate against blacks. Moving on from the Maritime and International Slavery Museum, I have arrived here at Albert Docks, where our forefathers, my forefathers, were forcibly transported from Africa, and they were brought to these docks here, whereby they were then sold as slaves or forced to work in inhumane conditions, as we have read in history. Unfortunately, these myths regarding Africa's influence on Christianity and the continent in general has been reinforced in sociology, with governments in the West creating social structures and making it socially acceptable to discriminate against blacks. These myths were enforced in science, with science lending its support to Charles Darwin's altering book, The Origin of Species, which fueled racism and justified hatred and oppression towards black people. In education, never was my peers, even now our children, never have black people been given or taught about the great nations of North, West, East, and Central Africa that existed before the slave trade. Western education successfully perpetuated the notion or the myth of inferiority in academia, that we were never taught about the great accomplishments of Africans, which include producing clocks, calendars, maps, great architecture, engineering, medicine, mathematics, and more. In fact, Africans were the first to teach students from Greece on African soil. A lot of this history has gone missing, and in most cases, deliberately suppressed. That's why today I am talking about it. Nevertheless, I am not here to remonstrate, but rather to briefly bring to the fore and celebrate influence of Africa on Christianity and demystify the myth that it is a white man's religion. Myths, however, do not need facts. They simply need supporters to keep perpetuating the falsehoods. Before briefly touching on the influence of the church fathers on Christianity in Africa, it is worth cementing this fact that Christianity was established in Africa well ahead of the Roman world. Even before Christianity, Africa is woven within the tapestry of the Bible, right from the first book of the Bible, Genesis, with the 4 rivers passing through Cush, Havilah, and Ashur. These would be modern day Sudan, Ethiopia, and Eritrea. Important personalities such as Abraham and Moses even spent some time in Africa. Even Moses' wife was of Ethiopian descent. North Africa became an early cradle of Christianity. Christianity's link with Africa started just weeks after the birth of our Savior, Jesus Christ. The Gospels highlight that Jesus and his family fled to Egypt to escape the wrath of King Herod. Simon of Cyrene, which is modern day Libya, so we could say Simon of Libya, is mentioned in the first 3 of the 4 Gospels as the man who was impelled by the Roman soldiers to carry Jesus's cross out of Jerusalem. The first non-Jewish convert was an African who hailed from Ethiopia. Mark, the author of the first gospel, was born in Cyrene, which is modern-day Libya. He immigrated to Jerusalem with his family and came back to Egypt to establish the Church of Alexandria in 49 CE and is honored today as the first ever Bishop of Alexandria. Africa, especially from the 1st to the 3rd century, was a powerful force for keeping the church out of heresy. In fact, the first 300 years of Christianity had its roots and foundation in Africa. Christian scholarship, the intellectual platform, and even the birth of the university was already established in Africa, Alexandria, Egypt to be precise, before it eventually moved towards Europe. Such was the influence of Christianity in Africa that as it spread to the West in the proposed government of a united universal Christendom, Africa was included in the Pentarchy. Long before the rise of Islam in North Africa, cities like Carthage, Alexandria, Hippo, Cyrene, and the regions that are now Libya, Egypt, Tunisia, Northern Sudan, Ethiopia, Morocco were all under the influence of Christianity. However, a lot of that history was lost in these regions due to the rise of Islam. Islam took over the great Christian monasteries, the universities, the libraries, the churches, and turned it into Islamic institutions. All these Christian institutions were lost, and consequently, Christianity became little known to scholars of the West. Therefore, when people think about Christianity, they do not think about the origin of Christianity, which was birthed in an Afro-Asiatic region, but rather they think of Christianity emerging from the West because it has a longer history of continuity with records widely available to read. Touching on the heroes of the Christian faith post the disciples era, we have the African church fathers whose teachings have shaped and strengthened and had a lasting impact on Christianity at a time when the faith was under attack from different groups. We have the likes of Tertullian, who was born in Carthage, that is modern-day Tunisia. He was the first major theologian to produce extensive Christian literature in Latin. Tertullian earned the title of the father of Latin theology. He also laid the foundations for the doctrine of the Trinity. We also have Origen, who was born in Alexandria, Egypt. His greatest work was the Hexapla, which is a synopsis of the 6 versions of the Old Testament. Origen's main work, the De Principiis, which is on first principles, was the first systematic exposition of Christian theology ever written. Augustine of Hippo, born in Tagaste, which is now or modern day Algeria, regarded as the greatest mind and most influential mind of the Christian church. He adapted classical thought to Christian teaching and created powerful theological system of lasting influence. Other church fathers such as Cyprian of Carthage from Tunisia, Athanasius of Alexandria, Egypt, the great physician Saint Anthony of Egypt, all shaped Christian theology. If not for our African church fathers who tirelessly fought to preserve our faith, the faith of Christianity, the early church may have given way to heretical teaching. There have only ever been 3 African popes in the history of the papacy. All of these popes accomplished many noble tasks during their papacy. However, this seems to be overlooked because of their ethnic backgrounds. Let's take Pope Victor I, who was the 14th pope and was pope for 10 years. He is remembered for ensuring all churches across the world celebrate Easter on a Sunday. Pope Militardis, the 32nd Pope, was Pope for 3 years. During his papacy, he helped to put an end to the persecution of Christians. His influence enabled Christians to reconstruct places of worship and ensure that all confiscated items, land, property belonging to Christians during the persecutions be returned back to them. Finally, we have Pope Gelasius, the 49th Pope, and was Pope for 4 years. He delivered Rome from the peril of famine and was well known for his austerity of life and liberality to the poor. He is said to be the most fairest popes of his time. The essence of this dialogue has been to combat the common misconception that Christianity is a white man's religion. As this could not be further from the truth, history, therefore, should be written without bias to present a factual account of historical events. Christianity has a rich African heritage that led to the conversion of Europe to Christianity, not the other way round. That said, no one can claim ownership of Christianity because by its very nature, it is a contextual religion, a contextual faith. Thank you for listening. God bless you.